The short clip shows the soldiers, one clutching a half-eaten burger, cheering Tommy Robinson and punching the air. It's received 18,000 likes and generated more than 1,000 comments on the social media site. The Army says it will investigate. Anyone who is in breach of the Army's values and standards will face administrative action, they said. Well, let's to Dr. Sheikh Ranzi, who's director of the Oxford Islamic Information Centre, former head of education for the Muslim Council of Britain. Do we need an Army investigation into this? Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Yes, we do need it because it is very important. I believe we have a very united army. And of course, if I tell you, last Saturday we were walking for the peace. We went to Peace Garden for commemorating the 100 years or a century of the people which the soldiers which lost their life for us to live as a united and together. Is in the walking there. And of course,
so this was walking in remembrance of what? I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't quite
remember commemorating the Muslims who lost their life on the First World War.
Dr. Ramsey, are you likening Tommy Robinson to the Germans in World War One?
I have to say, Tommy Robinson is totally wrong, and of course, in trying to make a total division.
Right, what this Muslim from Oxford is speaking about that him and a few of his cronies had a march, a remembrance march to remember how the Muslims participated in the First World War and in the Second World War. My question is this to this Muslim from Oxford is this: why is it that I do not see members of my Pakistani community remembering the war dead on Remembrance Day across the UK? Almost every town holds a Remembrance Day. Facebook, again, man, messing up, right? So excuse me if it says on there poor connection, right? That's a lot of nonsense. Facebook are just trying to be a bit of a nuisance. So if my words tend to break up, it's Facebook. Anyway, as I was saying, how is it that I never see members of my Pakistani community? When I say Pakistani community, I mean the Pakistani Muslims. How is it they do not remember the war dead during the Remembrance Day across the UK? Most of the towns across the UK hold a Remembrance Day. How is it that I do not see you there? And here you are trying to paint a nice picture for yourself by saying you were out there with your cronies remembering the Muslims who died during World War I and II. And rightly so. But why aren't you also out there remembering the war dead, the white soldiers that died as well, and the Sikhs? Why aren't you out there on Remembrance Day? You see, this is a classic example of takir at work. You want to paint a nice picture for yourselves.
Total division between the united people, between the people, and of course.
Why would you seek to open our conversation by talking about Germans in World War One? I don't subscribe to Mr. Robinson's views, but I'm not going to say he's like a German soldier.
No. I am not saying he's a German soldier, but I said what I was going to say. I was going to say I saw the armies all united. I did not say, of course. I said we went there. They were united. I am not saying, of course, Tommy Robinson is that. I'm saying Tommy Robinson just make a just division. But what I was going to say, I saw all the, for example, Sikh.
No, Tommy Robinson is not causing divisions. I'll tell you what is causing divisions. It's when Pakistani men from our communities decide to deliberately target white children for the purposes of rape, torture, beatings and exploitation, prostituting them out. That's what is causing divisions. What is causing divisions is when Pakistani men from our communities decide to groom Sikh girls and Hindu girls. That's what's causing community tensions. It's when members of our Pakistani community decided to blow up tube trains underground in 2005, I think it was. British-born Pakistani men deciding to turn on fellow Brits. That's what's causing community tensions. It's when you play the victim card and the Islamic phobic card and demand whatever you want, whether it's halal meat at schools or whether it's special treatment in prisons. It's this victim mentality that's causing community tensions. It's your refusal to deal with the demons within our own Pakistani communities. This is what's causing community tensions. It's when you, the Muslims as a whole, not just the Pakistani Muslim communities, but the Muslims as a whole, when you decide that the punishment for those who leave Islam must be either beatings or be killed, even here in the UK, where the British Pakistani Muslim community in Bradford decided that the punishment of leaving Islam must be met with death. You almost killed Nisar Hussain in Bradford for doing just that, for leaving Islam. His crime in your eyes was because he left Islam. This is what's causing community tensions. You are trying to override the British rule of law with your own medieval Sharia law. This is what's causing community tensions. It's the rapes, the beatings of ex-Muslims, and your hatred towards white people, white-skinned people, and especially your stereotyping of the white women as slags, women who sleep around. This is what's causing community tensions. Why aren't you, Mr. Muslim, condemning all these acts? Why aren't you marching on the courts? Today, for example, at Huddersfield, why weren't any of you there, outside there, showing your disgust to your fellow Muslims for the rapes and beatings and torture of 11-year-old children? Why aren't you out there? I'll tell you why you're not out there. Because you don't give a damn. It's white kids. You blame 11-year-old child. It's her fault for being out late. It's her fault for dressing up the way she is. It's her fault for hanging around with these guys. And it's the parents' fault for abandoning their 11-year-old girls. You refuse to see a bigger picture, that these girls are from abusive homes and put into care and straight into more abuse, which is much more evil and severe. And you say that these girls asked to be raped and beaten and tortured and prostituted out. This is what's causing community tensions, Mr. Muslim. Let's be open and transparent. And yet you keep on playing this victim card. It is I, a fellow Pakistani, who's actually standing up and exposing the hideous racist elements within the Pakistani Muslim communities. Not everyone, I'm not saying everyone is a racist towards the whites, but a majority of them are. And this is a problem. There is a small minority who aren't. And it's like finding a needle in a haystack, but a majority of the Pakistani Muslims are racist, especially towards the whites.
From the army, there are Sikhs, there are the Hindus, there are Muslims, all together united. That's what I was going to show, all united. And if there is any disunity, we have to take it out. That's all I was going to say. I did not want to say he's from the German or he's a German.
A young man could have his service terminated simply because he posed for a photograph with Tommy Robinson?
The main thing is a person, of course, we have to see, there has to be investigation, of course, investigation. They do, if the people punch up and they say, of course, oh, Tommy Robinson, that means they are supporting him, and of course, you have to see, maybe it was some drinking party which they didn't really mean it.
Drinking party?
But I'm not very sure. I haven't seen that.
No, okay. I'm grateful for your input. Thank you. Dr. Sheikh Ramsey, you're director of the Oxford Islamic Information Centre, and you're former head of education for the Muslim Council of Britain.
Well, I'm glad, Nick, that you ended this ridiculous call. I take my hat off to you in the way you handled this episode on this occasion. Now, a Muslim from Oxford was alluding to that maybe the soldiers were on a drinking party and they didn't mean to have their photographs taken with Tommy and all that. Oh man, this is the mentality that we are dealing with. This is why it's an uphill struggle to get into the mindsets of these deluded, narrow-minded individuals who live in their own world, their own cocoon of Islamic way of thinking. It's a tough call trying to break through there, but we can only do it if more people like myself who have turned away from Islam speak out. He was also saying that there should be an investigation into the photographs taken with Tommy. Mr. Muslim from Oxford, why aren't you calling for an investigation into the rapes of white children across Britain by Pakistani Muslim men from our communities? Why are you not calling for an investigation into that to see why it's happening? Why aren't you openly speaking out about this? Yes, we do see pockets of Muslims appearing on TV to say, oh yes, this is vile, I condemn this. That's just a show. Pockets of Muslims before the camera. They say the words that they expect us to hear. Facade, takir at work, and yet when they're off camera in their own homes, what do they say? They say it's a white girl's fault. White children's fault. How do I know this? I know this because I used to be part of the Muslim community, the Pakistani community. I know how they think. I know how they think Islam. I know how they eat Islam. I know how they breathe Islam. I know.
You're now suggesting effectively these lads are drinking on duty, so we'll bring the veil down on that. Thanks for your input, for your work. Carl in Orpington on this. Carl, you're on the radio. Good morning.
Hello, Nick. Typical, on ridiculous kind of comment you just made. The bottom line is, I wonder how the 12,000 plus army, ethnic minority army, kind of people who represent our country feel about this kind of situation.
Oh, right. You mean you're automatically against
Navy kind of ethnic minorities and others?
So are you saying that
there has to be a degree of standards, and if those standards fall short of what they should be, then there should be a proper investigation into it and a resolution.
How do you know? How do you know that these 12,000 recruits of whom you speak are all opposed to Tommy Robinson?
Well, what I'm saying is that
that's what you said.
The army consists of a mixed bag of people who.
No, I've got that. No, I've worked that out actually. Why don't you address my question, Carl? Do it my way, please. How do you know those 12,000 would feel angered by these soldiers' response to Tommy Robinson?
Well, it's because it's obviously implied, because Tommy Robinson is a right-wing speaker, and clearly he is not committed to the idea of a multicultural society. And if he is reflecting that idea, I think that's wrong.
So this guy's saying that Tommy Robinson's is, in effect, what he's trying to say is that Tommy's against anyone that's not white-skinned. What a load of baloney. What a load of utter baloney. Multiculturalism, eh? Let me say this. Multiculturalism has not failed. What has failed is the Muslim communities embracing multiculturalism. That's what's failed. And this deluded individual is talking about how Tommy is against multiculturalism. Not once has he said that. Not once.
Be allowing him to reflect that idea.
In some instances, in some instances, he's campaigning against, in some instances, what he sees as the dangerous Islamification of certain towns and cities such as Rochdale. Well, I'm talking about that. I'm talking about that, Carl. He's campaigning about the problems in Telford and in Rochdale and in Rotherham. I think a lot of the soldiers, regardless of their colour or their ethnicity or their faith, would all support that, wouldn't they?
Nick, you're talking a load of rubbish as you usually do on these topics. And the bottom
Why is that a load of rubbish?
Yes, it is. It's a load of rubbish.
But why?
Because straight away you brought Islamophobia into the situation alone.
You don't have problems with what happens in Telford? You don't have problems with what happens in Telford and Rochdale?
Oh, you keep interrupting, so I'm clearly going to just end the conversation.
It's up to you if you want to.
I'm talking to you.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So clearly this man, you've seen that, haven't you? You heard that. As soon as Nick brought up the issues of Telford, Rochdale, Rotherham, straight away he brought up the word Islamophobia. Carl, you are a massive part of the problem. You're not the solution. You are actually the massive part of the problem. You are fueling my Pakistani community's victimhood. The race card, you are fueling that by your stupidity. Islamophobia. You ended the call because you could not argue a point regarding Telford. You couldn't even answer his question of how you felt about Telford and Rotherham and places like that, and yet here you are saying that the British Army, I think you said that the British Army are racist, and yet I have served with the British Army. I had a fantastic time. I didn't encounter 1 ounce of racism. Brilliant bunch of lads to have served with. Let's play this on and see the next caller. Hear the next caller.
I thought you might, because you're on rather thin ice, I would suggest. More on this. Matthew's in Chessington. You're on the radio, Matthew. Good morning.
Good morning. Do you ever see Tommy Robinson protesting outside Catholic churches?
Do I ever see Tommy? I've never actually physically seen him protest anywhere, but no, to my knowledge, no.
From what I see, he only seems to care when the people committing these sexual offences have brown skins.
Right.
A number of other people in the EDL are convicted sex offenders. He doesn't seem to have a problem with that.
Well, hold on. I don't think he's in the EDL anymore, but we'll go on.
Former EDL, because he thinks he's...
No, I agree. No, listen, hang on. I think we are in a free country, and you don't need an army investigation into this, or do you?
You also have. You do.
What? An army investigation?
Yes, there is a history of racism in the army, just as there's a history of racism in the police, because the police were a largely ex-army historically.
Where do you get the history of racism? Hold on, Matthew. Where do you get the idea of a history of racism in the army? From whenever I've spent time with the military, it's actually refreshing to see how many non-white faces there are.
I did.
Right, let's make one point that he pointed out, that there are. He says that there are a number of the sexual offenders with the EDL. As far as I'm aware, there's only one individual who claimed to be part of the EDL that was actually arrested and put in prison for paedophilia. Let me make this clear. The EDL actually condemned that, collectively came out and condemn that individual. They ousted him. We do not condone this type of behavior, and we do not stay quiet about this type of behavior. One thing about the white community is this, that they are quick to condemn white pedophiles. They are quick. They are disgusted. You can see it on the Facebook comments, one after the other. The list is endless. They condemn white pedophiles, and yet I'm still waiting to see Muslims queuing up with the comments on Facebook condemning these Muslim rapists. I don't see how. I don't see any. I don't see any. What I do see is, oh, what about the white pedophiles? Oh, what about this? Oh, what about that? Oh, what about the church? That's all I see. This is a problem. This is a massive part of the problem. This denial, this deluded denial. Instead of outright condemning the Pakistani men from our communities, you deflect it by your victim mentality. If you are that disgusted, condemn them outright without any excuses. And the other point this guy has raised is why Tommy doesn't speak about the Catholic Church in its abuse of sexual rapes of children. Well, I'll tell you why. Because there's no need to. People openly condemn and speak about it. People challenge it. People are disgusted. And those individuals who have covered up such crimes have been and will be brought to justice. We openly speak about it. The white people have no problem speaking about pedophiles amongst their own community. Whereas the Pakistani Muslims, they do have a problem. They ignore it. They allow the anguish of white children to continue by remaining silent. That's a problem. Also, the Catholic priests who raped children were not acting on a scripture. They're not acting on what Jesus taught, because Jesus never taught these things. The Catholic priests did not target children based on their race. A white paedophile does not target a child based on its race. He will target any child. That's a difference. Whereas members of our Pakistani community were acting on the examples that Muhammad set when he married a 6-year-old and had sex with her when she was 9. This is the moral example that they take. They also targeted white girls based on their race. They raped them, tortured them, and they also called them white trash, white slags that deserve it. This is blatant racism. Not just rape, but racially aggravated rape. This is a whole different kettle of fish between the Catholic Church and the Muslim rapist. It's been covered up for the past 40 years, the rapes of Sikh girls and white girls. This is why there's an outrage and the media's failure to accurately cover such trials. This is why Tommy was pushed into reporting what was happening. Had it not been for Tommy, all this would be still brushed under the carpet, because of community relations are more important than the rapes and torture and the beatings of 11-year-old girls. Community tensions are more important. Political correctness is more important than rule of law. This is what we have come to. It is no wonder that the British soldiers are starting to wake up to what's happening. Let's play this further.
Didn't say there weren't any brown people in the army.
No, but you said there was a history. Give me some examples.
There is.
Give me some examples.
Sorry, I can't give you a concrete example. There is
So you just make an assertion.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Why does
I'm
this?
making an assertion.
Right. Why could possibly a young man lose his post in the army as a result of chanting the words Tommy and Robinson in a car park in Watford?
Because he is well known for being a bigot.
Right.
As a previous person has pointed out, how would you feel if they were chanting?
Anjem Chowdhury, exactly the same. I would take him to the side and say, I would say this is inappropriate. Don't do. As I'm saying here, I'm not supporting it. I'm saying we don't need to spend a lot of money and time with a full army probe into it. It just doesn't warrant it, Matthew. They have a democratic, as the former soldier said, John in Twickenham put it far better than I. These young men might lay their lives down to try and preserve or bring about democracy in other countries, but they can't have it in a car park in Watford. It's ridiculous.
In the social media age where this is spread widely, and people like Tommy Robinson know this, him pictured with a bunch of people from the army is very powerful to him. It's not just about them, it's about him, it's about other people in the army, it's about people outside the army.
Matthew, I must move on to allow...
Again, this guy said that the British Army as a whole is a racist institute. Again, as I said before, I served with the British Army. I didn't hear or even experience any racism. There were a bunch of great lads. It's a community that sticks together. And again, I will point this out. Tommy Robinson has never been arrested for any race crimes. Tommy Robinson has never been arrested for any extreme crimes, if I can put it like that. Tommy Robinson has not been arrested for any hate crimes. Why hasn't he been arrested? Because he's none of those things. That's why. And to compare him to Anjan Chowdhury, who actually propagates murder on infidels, especially against the British troops, and aligns himself with ISIS. To compare Tommy with him is absolutely ludicrous. Tommy stands against any form of terrorism. Any form of terrorism. He speaks against attacks on innocent Muslims. He has said repeatedly he does not say that every Muslim person is the same. He has said that repeatedly. What he speaks about is the Quran and the Islamic teachings. He is a voice of the common man. This is not about Tommy anymore. It might have been about Tommy when he first started, but it's not about Tommy anymore. It's gone beyond that. Tommy echoes the thoughts and the words of many, many millions of British people across the UK and also the world. He echoes our thoughts, our words. He echoes our concern, my concerns about Islam, which is why I turned away from it. He is a people's person. He is, in essence, the commander of and chief of the British forces, if I can put it like that. A man that's got guts to stand up. A man that single-handedly has challenged the establishment to this point. He is a big headache for them now. Now he has entered into the British Army arena. You see, before even Tommy started, before even Tommy was born, we had these problems about community tensions. The rapes were happening before even Tommy was born. And to say that Tommy is only highlighting rapes because they're brown-skinned is absolutely ludicrous. He's even spoken against the Catholic Church. He says he detests the Catholic Church. Even though he was brought up as a Catholic, he actually hates the Catholic Church. I have no problems with Tommy speaking about Pakistani men from my community raping white girls. If the Pakistani Muslim community did their job, their moral duty, and stood outside the courts with the British people and condemned these rapes, we won't be at this stage right now. If the British Pakistani Muslims or Muslims as a whole stood against the hatred of the Jews, we won't be having these problems right now. People, do me a favor, share this clip. I don't want to go on because I don't want to bore you. I'm absolutely tired, shattered. I just got up after a night shift work. But I hope this clip was helpful. I try and do whatever I can to help the British people, the British white people, against the slurs of being called racist and far right. I will do my best. And I hope that this clip has helped somewhat. can I also say to the police officers, or whether you're MI5 or police officers or agents who are actually watching this, because I know you are watching this, I am not a threat to you. I am trying to spread a message of peace, and at the same time confronting the demons within the Pakistani communities, the Muslim communities, not the Pakistani Christian communities, but the Muslim communities. There are about approximately 17,000 Pakistani Christians in the UK. Not one has been arrested or charged or put in prison for the rapes of white girls. So this is not a culture problem. It's a religious problem. It's a religious problem. Why is it? It's the Pakistani Muslims who are raping. It's the same culture, but two different religions. One follows the teachings of Christ and the other follows the teachings of Muhammad. The proof is in the pudding. Please